I'm sure you can all remember playing in the sandbox as a child. You or maybe a friend saying, "What are you trying to do? Dig to China?" Have you ever really thought about that? And what that would be like? From what I could find, this saying can be traced back to the 1850s by a man named Henry David Thoreau, who was an American author, poet, philosopher. And why he had this idea, who knows? He's a poet, I guess. Well, ironically, 120 years later, would mark the beginning of the record dig in history. Started in 1970 and didn't end till 1990. Reached a depth of 12,262 meters. A record that stands to this day. Needless to say, a far-fetched from digging to China. In theory, it sounds interesting. And after this video, I will show why this topic should be used more often in debunking the globe model.
We live on a large spinning ball, and it's mathematically well known that getting to the opposite side means a long, slow trip around the outside, or a quick dig straight through the center. The further north you start that dig, the further south you'll pop out of the ground on the other side. This raises the age-old question, where can I dig to? And from where can I dig all the way to China? If we lived on a flat world, this question would be a non-event. There's just up and down. But we live on a sphere, so there is another side. Let's use visual analytics, just some display properties, and extrude the shape of China through the center of the Earth and out the other side, properly inverting it on the way through. This is the area where an intrepid explorer would begin their dig to China. And any country shape can be used. There are the Atlantean Aussies, the Botswanian Islanders, the Spanish Kiwis, and the rather damp Americans. Looking at the world with new eyes, with visual analytics, can change the way you think about it forever. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your digging.
So let's imagine for a second that this was possible. We'd start with our shovels and our buckets, and away we go. Now for argument purposes, let's forget about the hot molten core, the cartoon that's never been verified. Let's just eliminate that for the sake of argument. And concentrate more on the magical theory of gravity, on the ball Earth model. Now when we start digging to China in our little imaginary experiment here, we're going to imagine we're going straight through the center of the ball Earth, because if you was to go through the side over here or something, it gets way more complicated. Once you're down here to the center, you're going to reach a point where up and down would flip. But wait a minute, there's no up or down on the ball model. Because remember, you could be in Australia and stand it upside down and nobody even knows it. Now here's where it gets interesting. As we were digging down, we're carrying ropes and buckets full of dirt, throwing it out. Then we get to the center point, the mass of where gravity pulls us to, supposedly. Then what? You're standing on the bottom of a hole at the very center point of Earth. Now this gets really hard to imagine. because anything past that center point is now up instead of down. So you can no longer stand in the bottom of the hole. You'd have to build you a little platform at the center point, and you'd have to build a ladder system to dig up over your head to the way out. But where would the dirt go? This proposes all sorts of tricky, mind-boggling problems. And that's going through the center. If you were to go over here to the side, it's even crazier.
What American kid hasn't thought about taking a shovel and digging a hole so deep that it goes right through to China? Well, it turns out there's a problem here. If you dig a hole almost anywhere in the lower 48 states of the USA straight through the earth, you will come up not in China, but in an ocean. It turns out our 48 states lie directly opposite a cold, empty sea near Antarctica.
Yeah.
So almost everybody in America is standing opposite water. With very few exceptions, we did find that if you stand right here, 22 miles east of Kit Carson, Colorado, or here near Lamar, Colorado, both are directly opposite tiny volcanic islands, Île Saint-Paul and Île Amsterdam. Or if you stand here, 20 miles from the Canadian border near Chester, Montana, literally the home of the Beau and Joette Woods family, they live directly opposite the Kerguelen Islands near Antarctica. And that's pretty much it. Everybody else in the 48 states who digs a hole straight through will end up getting wet. Which does make you wonder, is there any place on the whole planet where if you dug a hole straight through, all the way through, you won't end up in China? Well, if you take your child to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and drive about 2 hours north to the Uruguayan border and give him a shovel and you start digging here, he should pop up in downtown Shanghai. Just so you know. Robert Krulwich, ABC News.
Howdy. Yeehaw.
Now you notice in this cartoon analogy, they didn't dare try to explain anything other than going straight through the center of the earth. It's just too much to wrap your mind around because it's a cartoon, it's not real. 12,000 meters is the record depth. It'll never be broken. There's a barrier below just like there's a barrier above. Nobody's getting out of here. Nobody's going to space. Nobody's digging to China. You're going to stay on this earth and you're going to deal with whatever happens, which is looking more and more like up in the sky is where we're going to find out what it's all about. I also find it pretty fascinating how each one of these digs is pretty close to one another. There's a barrier down there, folks. You ain't getting through. You can only get so far and that's it. It ain't because it's hot or whatever. There might be hot stuff down there, but why is it the same all the way over, all over the earth? And the record altitude for flying, 47,910 feet, or around 12,000 meters. No, that'd be 18,000 meters, wouldn't it? Anyway, you get up there to 67,000. This is a prison planet, guys. A balloon, the Red Bull guy, got up to 127,000 feet. High flying rocket. It's a prison planet, folks. It's protected. You know, what kills me is all these supposed truth seeker geniuses out there like White Rabbit. out there, Pastor Anderson. These guys are getting paid to do this stuff. You can't prove the ball. You know how much imagination you got to have for the ball. It's ridiculous. We're digging to China, folks. Try to wrap your head around that one. Thanks for watching.